Alright, let's talk about what I read in February. Hi everybody, my name is Maddie and welcome back to my channel, or thanks for joining us if you're new here. And like I said before the little intro, I'm going to be wrapping up everything that I read in February today. It is a very chilly day outside, so it's a good day to be curl up in a blanket with a cup of tea and chat about some books. So I'm still a little bumpy in trying to catch up on getting back into kind of my reading speed that I used to be at. I'm quite a bit behind on my reading challenge for this year, but I'm just trying to take it slow, get comfortable, get back into the rhythm of things. But that means that I did only read 5 books this month. I don't know why I say that like it's a bad thing. Like, obviously reading is reading, and I mean that still means I got through a book a week, which is pretty cool. But yeah, just trying to get more comfortable in just reading when I want to read and allowing myself to ensure that I'm in this space where I'm enjoying it and not getting too wrapped up in the numbers, which I know can be a little bit difficult if you're someone who's involved in BookTube or BookTok or Bookstagram, to think that, oh, I have to read so much. And honestly, as long as you're reading something and you're liking it, that's what it's all about. Alright, PSA over. So the very first thing that I finished this month was the Magnus archives. I finished the last season of this, which is season 5, and I was fucking devastated. Like, I don't know how to explain to you how much the last episode, like, messed with me. So if you don't know what the Magnus Archives is, essentially it follows this fictional organization in the UK that documents supernatural occurrings. And it is an audio drama podcast, and there are 5 seasons, each with 40 episodes in them. I can do math. 40 times 5 is 200. So it is absolutely incredible. I loved it, and I think I talked about this in my January wrap-up when I had read season 4, that the character development was getting so much stronger as the seasons went on. I won't talk too much about the plot of this season for people who want to go and listen from the beginning, but that was something that like really got me through this. And then like towards the end, you know when you're like reading something and everything is getting like too good, like things are going too well and you're like, somebody's gonna die, something's gonna go wrong. That's what happened, and things went wrong and I'm still not over it. So I've been doing a lot of re-listening, fan art, exploration, just trying to allow myself to emotionally heal. I feel bad for my friend who has also listened to it, because I think I just screamed at them for a while, and then I sent them that picture of the like person just lying in a puddle of tears. So yeah, if that's a journey you want to go on, I definitely recommend checking out the Magnus Archives. After this, I read the novel The Infinite Noise, and this was completely unintentional. I just was going through my TBR and looking at my libraries and seeing what books I could find online, but The Infinite Noise is actually based off of a podcast. So I guess there's a podcast called The Bright Sessions, and then the creator of that podcast has written books with some of the characters. So The Infinite Noise follows 2 characters whose names I'm not going to remember. Give me a minute. So it follows 2 characters. Caleb, who is a quarterback and finds out that he is what is called an atypical, and his power is that he is an empath, which, reading this with like current TikTok trends, it's very hard to hear the word empath and like take it seriously. But he's, you know, having a really hard time being like surrounded by all of these emotions and just being like overwhelmed by all the noise. But there's a student in his school named Adam that he is like drawn to, and his therapist, Dr. Bright, which is where like the Bright Sessions podcast name comes from, encourages him to get closer to Adam. So it is like a YA romance, but there's also like an element of mystery and like the supernatural as well to it, which is kind of cool. I think I ended up giving this like 3.5 stars. I loved the characters. I got like really involved in the story. Adam has depression, and the way that it was explored was really well done and really resonated with me and my own personal experience of depression, especially like being in high school. And like there was a line in it where Adam talks about like causing himself pain is okay, but like causing his family pain was like really difficult for him. And oh, that just got me like right in the jugular. The only thing that I found a bit frustrating about this book was the ending. I was reading it on my Kobo, and so on my Kobo, obviously I can't really flip to the end as easily to see where the book finishes and then where there's like, you know, that extra stuff that's usually in the back. I thought I had like another good 40-50 pages, and it turned out that that was like an excerpt from the next novel, and the next novel in the series doesn't deal with these characters at all. So I was a little bit shocked when it ended so abruptly, especially too because Caleb and Adam didn't really get to have a conversation about Adam's depression, which I thought was really kind of important for their growth in their relationship. There was a lot of things that were like kind of unresolved, and there was more about like kind of this mystery that we kind of are trying to like put the pieces together for that like we don't get to find out about. So that was like really frustrating for me to like have such a good book with such an unsatisfying ending. Was a rough time. After that, I read Vicious, which is by V. Schwab, and this follows, character names. I don't understand why I have such a hard time with characters' names, if it's just that I read so much, because in real life, like, I'm fine. I'm great with people's names. I have a really good memory. I don't know, this seems to be my weakness, my kryptonite. So we follow Victor and Eli, who are college roommates, and Eli starts working on this project to try and figure out how to make extraordinaries. Can you sense a theme in the things that I was reading this month? Which are essentially like superheroes, people with extraordinary abilities, and he discovers that you need to have like a near-death experience. And of course, they decide that they're gonna, test this theory out for themselves. Very wild. Definitely a bit of a roller coaster ride at the beginning. I knew that my mom had read this book and then DNF'd it, so I was like messaging her, kind of trying to figure out how far she got. I know she doesn't do as well with like gore. She's not as much of a horror person as I am, so there's definitely a lot of violence and stuff at the beginning that can be difficult, so I would definitely recommend checking out some of the trigger warnings for this. But essentially, they end up kind of, things spiral out of control, and Victor finds himself chasing down Eli, trying to stop him as Eli is on a mission to try and eradicate these extraordinaries because he thinks there's something unnatural about them. Really wild. I think the time period was like the only thing that threw me off just from the cover of the book. I thought it was going to be more like Victorian era. I didn't realize it was going to be modern day, but I do think the characters were particularly interesting and layered. I really liked Victor, and I definitely dove into the story and had a lot of interest with it. The only thing was they kept talking about how, so Eli's ability is that he can heal. And they kept talking about how difficult it was going to be to kill him, or that he was unkillable. And I was sitting here sounding like a serial killer because I was like, you just chop off his head and remove it from his body. Or you just chop up all of his body parts and keep them apart from each other so they can't regenerate, because I don't know if he can read glow libs. Or you stick something in him a la the cheerleader character in Heroes, and then don't take it out so he can't heal. And I was like, wow, I read a lot of books with this kind of trope. And I realized that as I was thinking those thoughts, I'm like, this, if I don't know, the FBI, CISA, whoever the person is in Canada could be monitoring my brain, they would be a little concerned about me. After I finished Vicious, I read Vengeful, which was the sequel, and I had heard kind of mixed reviews about this, so I wasn't too surprised when I had a really hard time getting through it. This book, they bring in a new character, Marcella, who is a mob boss's wife, and she finds out that her husband was cheating on her. Things kind of escalate. She ends up becoming an extraordinary, and her whole thing is that she wants power. Her whole life she's kind of been pushed to the side. Even in the mob business, she hasn't really been able, she's just seen as the wife, just kind of there as glitter or arm candy, and she actually wants to be involved in all of these decisions. My problem was we got way too much Marcella, way too much backstory, and those weren't really the characters that I was interested in. Even Eli, we got Eli's backstory of how he became who he was, and I was I didn't need this. I already have enough context for this character, and I think some of the things we were given enough clues that we could have filled in those blanks on our own to really understand who he was and what happened. Okay, I'm gonna say spoilers for Vicious from now on so I can talk about the plot a little bit more. So if you don't want to hear spoilers for Vicious, jump to the next book. The timestamps will be down below. At this point, Victor has been brought back from the dead and is struggling with his powers, and so he is looking for someone to heal him. I thought it would be a lot more interesting if we got more of that story, because that was really fascinating to me, like watching Victor like struggle and like kind of become somebody he isn't. I think that was something that also was hard for me, was like the violence of the book didn't really fit the characters in the way that it fit the characters of the previous book. And I thought it would have been a lot cooler to just kind of like follow that and follow Eli, like kind of figuring out what Victor's doing, and then slowly have them come back together. I felt like they tried to add this other character to use as a catalyst to bring the other characters together, but it ended up just feeling like filler, and I didn't really get attached to that part of the story as well. So I definitely recommend reading Vicious, but if you're going to read this series, I don't think you need to read Vengeful. You could just stop with where Vicious is. Last book. So the last book that I read this month was Saga number 56, and I think I talked about this in the previous video. It's definitely different reading a comic like issue by issue than like reading it volume by volume, because like so much happens but also so little happens in like one issue. Especially because the last issue of Saga was like a double issue and this one was just a single issue. At this point, we're still like kind of figuring out where we are in this world now that we've jumped like so many years into the future, and the characters are going on to, they've been boarded by another ship. There was like a kind of sucker punch line at the end that really got me. And like I've said, I have a harder time like ranking just single issue comics, but I'm excited to be going on this journey as the issues are coming out, as opposed to just reading it all at the end. Obviously, I'm going to go back and read it all at the end. One of the things that I did find interesting, though, is I do want to try and get like actual physical copies, because I've been reading them online. And at the end of this one, Brian K. Vaughan always has like a little letter. He's the author. And there was like a survey, but it's just like really random questions that like you can fill out and send in, and he's like, you know, if you actually rip this page out of the comic, he would like enter you to like win something. And the questions were like, I don't know, have you ever had an addiction? Do you like your job? What are your pronouns? Like, how did you feel about the last line? Because the last line was a lot in this one. So I thought that that was really cool too. You know, I've slowly been like dipping my toe into the comic community, but now to like kind of get a better idea of like, oh, okay, this is like a thing that happens, and like it feels like a little more intimate and a little more personal with the author to be able to like put some of that stuff together. So maybe if I can get a physical copy before the next issue comes out, I will write up some of those answers and send it out, because I just think that that's kind of cool and really fun. Anyways, that is everything that I read this month. I do have a stack of books set up for March. I have already read 2 things in March. I am going to be reading all of the Canada Reads books again, and then the week before the competition, I will be doing like 1 review of each book every day before the competition starts, like I did last year. So if you want to read along with me, or if you want to wait to see those reviews, that's going to be coming your way soon. Otherwise, I'm always looking for good book recs, so if you have any suggestions, leave them down below. Or if there was a book this month that you've read, give me your thoughts. I always love chatting books with people. Make sure you leave a comment if you liked this video, and subscribe so you get notifications when I post new videos. We're almost at 100 subscribers, so I'm hoping maybe we can get there before my birthday, which is in May, so I'm hoping that's a realistic goal. There is the link to my Storygraph if you want to see what I'm reading, and my art Instagram if you would like to follow me there. Thank you so much for watching. Stay warm if you're in a cold climate like I am, and until the next video, stay kind.